Hello, and welcome to a special edition of Capital Cast, Election 26. In this series, we're interviewing major party candidates for statewide offices in the upcoming March 17 primaries. Today, we're featuring Republican gubernatorial candidate Ted Dabrowski. Mr. Dabrowski is a former researcher and writer for the online news service Wirepoints. CNI reporters Brenden and Ben Szalinski spoke with Mr. Dabrowski on Monday, January 26th. Here now is that interview.
Ted Dabrowski, thank you for joining us. For years, you've positioned yourself as a thought leader within Illinois' conservative movement. This is the first time, however, that your name is appearing on the ballot as a candidate. Why did you decide to run for office now?
Well, I've been watching what's happening in this great state for a long time. I've tried to put out solutions. I've exposed the problems. I've been traveling the state, working with legislators, working with grassroots groups, and I finally said, "Look, I can't keep watching what's happening. I got to get off the sideline and get in the game." And so I'm excited to lead the effort, and I think we can fix this great state. It's an amazing state. We should be a top five state, and under Governor Pritzker, we're a bottom five state. So. This is the moment for change. I think we have to grab this moment.
We've been hearing a lot in this race about why J.B. Pritzker is the wrong choice for governor. But why are you the right choice, and why are your Republican opponents also not the right choice either?
Well, I think we're all good candidates. We all have our different strengths, but I think I bring something unique to the Republican Party, to Illinois. And on top of the 15 years that I've been doing public policy work, first I was at the Illinois Policy Institute for 6 years, then at Wirepoints for the last eight plus years. I've been working with all kinds of not just Republicans and Democrats, pointing out the problems, pointing out the solutions, doing things in a very fact-based way. And I've earned the respect and trust, I think, of people on both sides. It doesn't mean they always agree with me, but they know that I'm data-centric. I always reveal the truth in the data. And of course, we can always debate data as well. But I try to put that out there and create a good environment for discussion. And you can see that in my work on education and the lack of children reading, or the taxes, why they're so high, where they can be improved, on the out-migration stuff. So I think people trust that. And I can work up and down the ballot with every candidate on the data, on the messaging, on the problems. But tie that also with my past experience. I was in finance for 15 years, and I had an amazing international experience. I got to work with Citibank in Mexico for 6 years, and at Citibank Poland for 9. And I managed a big part of that Polish franchise. I was the treasurer, so I know budgets, I know economics, I know finances. So when I put together that experience and working in an amazing country that I did my small part to make better, meaning Poland. You put that experience with my public policy experience, and I think it's the best formula for we need to fix our finances. We need to get positive growth again, and I think I'm the person to do that. And I might add, by the way, I'm the only one building a broad coalition. If you look at the coalition of donors I put together, if you look at the coalition of grassroots, if you look at the support and endorsements that I'm getting, nobody else is doing that. I think I've got the broadest campaign, so it's a strictly building name ID, which is what I'm working on.
And to that point, Ted, in some of your appearances, you've touted your status of you're from Cook County, your running mates from Cook County, that you can win votes up there and in the collar counties. But you've also aligned yourself as a strong conservative candidate who agrees with President Trump on a lot of issues. I guess how does aligning yourself with the president help you or any Republican win in the suburbs where the president remains deeply unpopular?
Well, the positions I have are common sense conservative positions. I think that most people in Illinois will align with. Trump, of course, is not as popular in Illinois as he is in other states. But the things I stand for, I think we're going to have more than 50% agree with me in Illinois, and that's why I'm running. I think the Governor Pritzker has become too extreme. His policies are too extreme on many, many things. And, I think most people in the center, even center left, might agree that boys don't belong in the girls' bathrooms, things like that. The euthanasia bill he just passed, We've got third-term abortions. It's extreme on so many fronts. We're a sanctuary state and a sanctuary city in Chicago. It's creating havoc that we shouldn't be that. We should be joining our neighbors like Indiana and others who cooperate with the federal government. So I think I'm just bringing common sense policies. I want our children to read in schools. You take places like Decatur or Peoria or Rockford, you got the kids, the minority kids who read at grade level is in the 5%, 10%, 15%. It's a disaster. And I think most center independents, some center Democrats will join with me and work with me because we need to fix literacy. It's a massive problem in the state. So I don't think the positions that I'm bringing are wrong. I mean, we all want lower taxes. We got the highest property taxes in the country. Trump didn't do that. That's done by Democrats and Pritzker. We got the second highest gas taxes in the country. Trump didn't do that. That was done by Pritzker and the Democrats. So I could go on and on about all these problems we have, the outmigration of people. That has nothing to do with Trump. It has to do with all the Illinois policies that have failed us. Those are the ones I want to fix. And President Trump can't fix those things. We, as Illinoisans, have to fix them.
What's one area you disagree with President Trump on?
I would say that one thing that I find very interesting is investment in companies like Intel. I believe in free enterprise. I don't like government intervening in companies, much like Governor Pritzker gave $500 million of subsidies to Goshen, the Chinese communist EV battery maker. I don't understand why Pritzker would ever support a company in a national security type interest company. Batteries, electric, all that stuff's can become national security. Why we would do that? So I don't understand yet the president's decision to invest in something like an Intel. I would prefer the government stay out of companies and just let the free markets do what they do.
Now, there's been people who are very closely aligned with the president, people who work in his administration, like Stephen Miller, sometimes the president himself. They've labeled protesters, others who disagree with the Trump administration, as domestic terrorists. Is that appropriate?
Yeah, if you know me, if you know me, I'm not. Let's say I'm different. I don't like the name calling. I oppose the name calling. It happens. I understand politicians do that. I'm in a mode right now where I don't like. Pritzker calls federal law enforcement. He calls them jackbooted thugs. He calls them terrorists, racist. That's wrong because Pritzker's fomenting violence. So I don't like the name calling. And I stay away from it. I'd rather work on logic, persuasion. Look, in Illinois, if I'm going to win over people to support a Republican, we have to be persuasive, logical, reasonable, and fact-based. And if you look at my last 15 years, if you just Google Ted Dabrowski and Wirepoints, you will see that I'm always fact-based and not hyperbolic. Just try to be persuasive. That's my goal.
If I could, I guess, follow up on that. Does any of that make it harder just for a Republican to get their message across to win an election here in 2026?
You mean what, the connections or?
Yeah, just some of the things the president says, things we just see going on in the news. Is it making Republicans' lives harder when you're trying to cut through a Democrat-led state? I
try to really focus on what we have to do. Look, I've said it strongly. What Trump did to close the border after what we had under Biden, amazing success at closing the border. I love that the president put school choice in his federal funding bill. National school choice. That's nobody had even thought to do that. He did that. I do like that he really wants to bring not just lower crime, but safe cities. And people don't talk about that. It's one thing to lower crime. It's another to reach something where we can say our city is safe. I love that he's trying to bring manufacturing back. So there's a lot of things he's trying to do. However, and this is key for me when I'm on the campaign trail, we can't rely on President Trump to lower our property taxes. We can't rely on him to lower the gas taxes. He can't fix our public schools. So there's so many things he can't do. And that's the mess that our Illinois politicians have made. I want to fix them. And I want to work across the aisle, right? Getting our kids to read. We can't keep squeezing people out of their homes with these highest property taxes in the country. We just got to make things, we need to be a competitive state. And I've said it on the campaign trail over and over. We should be a top 5 state in this country. We should be one of the best states in this country. We've got the assets. We've got the beautiful land. We've got the lake. We've got Chicago, the economic engine. We've got these universities, infrastructure. We should be a top 5 state. and we're not. And under Governor Pritzker, we're a bottom 5 state in job creation and economic growth, in wage growth. That's a failure. We need to fix that so we can all, one, succeed, and two, stay in our state and keep our great companies in our state.
Well, you just mentioned it, so let's talk property taxes. Illinois has the highest effective property tax rate in the country at just under 2% of a home's value. You've proposed capping that rate at 1%. Since property taxes fund essential local services such as schools, parks, transit, how would you ensure that local governments still have the resources needed to provide those services under your plan?
Yeah, we need to do a really hard look at the monies that where we spend the money. So one of the things I would do right when we start, I've been doing transparency, exposing the data. I know where all the spending goes. There's a lot more that needs to be uncovered and exposed and made transparent. We've talked about this on the campaign trail. Our budget in Illinois has gone from 39 billion when Pritzker took over to over 55 billion. That's a massive $16 billion increase. It's a massive 40% increase. And yet, even with all that money and all the tax hikes we've had since then, we're still in deficit spending. And so we need to reveal where all that money's going. And then, things that we need to do really well, we should do them. And things that need to be cut need to be wiped out. And I'll tell you that the big thing, the big difference in property tax bills is education, right? 2/3, 60%, whatever the number might be, depending on the district, is property tax bills. And, people don't know this, but we spend $8,000 more per child than Indiana does. We spend $8,000 more per child on education than Florida does. And those two states, very different states, they spend a lot less than we do, and they have the exact same results for education. So the question has to be, why are we spending all that money? Where's it going? And I would go quickly. We have 850 school districts with all the bureaucracies that go with that. Florida has 74 school districts. We have more than 11 times, almost 12 times the number of school districts. We have to look at that and say, what is needed? Get rid of what's not needed. Make sure we cut the bureaucracy and put the money with teachers and in the classroom, not on bureaucrats. So there's a lot to do there. And I could go on. We're still double dipping in Illinois. We're still salary spiking in Illinois. We still pay superintendents like in places like Dalton, Illinois, which we know has been corrupted. The superintendent there makes $450,000 a year, and most kids can't read. We have a huge challenge. All this will be hard, but it's a huge opportunity to protect Illinois and their wallets.
You've also talked about cutting the income tax rate, which currently at 4.95%. What should be the appropriate income tax rate in Illinois?
Well, I tell you the big problem we have a cycle of just raising we have a cycle of raising tax rates, hoping we get more tax revenues. But as we keep raising taxes, guess what? People leave. Companies leave. Caterpillar headquarters gone. Boeing headquarters gone. Citadel gone. Tyson Foods, Morton Salt. We're destroying our tax base. The right way to do it is to lower taxes, get rid of the crazy spending that we do, and make it attractive for companies to come here. If we were growing our population, if we were growing our companies here, that would create more tax revenues because we have growth. That's the way to do it. So we keep pushing rates. I shouldn't say we, Pritzker and others keep pushing rates higher, and that's chasing away business. We need to lower rates and invite the business, invite the investment, invite the people. Then we can grow. And that's the best way to grow tax revenues.
Yeah, what rate would you bring that down to though?
Well, I think we should target where we were before the tax hike, right? We should be targeting the 3%. We were operating then successfully. You've got Missouri already saying they're going towards zero. You've seen Kentucky, Indiana, they've all lowered their flat tax rates. They're all lowering rates. We're the only one that is not lowering our rates, and we're raising all the other taxes, like the gas taxes, like the property taxes. So we have to compete. This is a competitive world, and we're not competing. We're going the other end. We're at the bottom of the barrel.
Well, I guess in that line of questioning, Ted, at a recent candidate forum, you said that there is so much waste and abuse that can be cut from the state budget. I was wondering if you can provide us a few specific examples and explain how those reductions would be sufficient to meaningfully and sustainably reduce spending.
Yeah, so let me give you a few examples. In CPS, everybody understands what a mess Chicago public schools are, and the power, the amazing power, and I say that in a negative way, that the Chicago Teachers Union has. But one half of schools Sorry, I got it backwards. 1/3 of all schools in Chicago public schools are half empty or worse. They are operating, they're just keeping schools open and this very expensive. And everybody knows the big examples that we've pointed out at Wirepoints. You take some of these schools that have capacity for 1,000 kids. There's only 30 kids in the classroom. That's it, 30 kids. So you got empty schools that are operating. Those are big opportunities. I've looked at tremendously the tremendous growth in administrative staff in CPS. Look, CPS has shrunk by 45,000 students since Pritzker came in. And yet administrative staffing is ballooned. So we're shrinking our schools and hiring more staff. And I'm not talking about teachers. I'm talking about administrative staff, supervisors, all that waste. And it happens in the higher education as well. There is tons of it because nobody's ever stopped it. Nobody's ever looked at it. It certainly doesn't get any attention by the existing government and the media. So it's a group like Wirepoints that has exposed all that. That's the stuff that we need to expose and cut back, and we'll be better off for it. I know layoffs in the government sector are tough, but duplication and waste in government doesn't produce anything. It just costs. So let's get the people out of the government and into productive parts of the economy. We'll grow more and we'll all be happier.
But is there anything specifically you can point to in whether it is in higher education or in other parts of the state budget of this is bloated or this is duplicative?
I don't have the numbers right here in my head, but I can share separately. But if you look at the administrative growth, it is phenomenal in both higher education and in K through 12. I had a press conference the other day. Let me bring up another one. The human services, human and family services, HFS, our numbers have ballooned. If you look at the Pritzker budget in the last 7 years, massive ballooning. The same kind of spending that's gone on in Minnesota that's gotten all the attention. We've had that same massive ballooning of expenses. So I'll give you childcare services. Whereas the general budget has grown 40%, the 47%, the childcare service has grown 300%. We're talking about 8 times faster growth in childcare services than the general budget. Now, we don't know what's in that, and it's too hard for us outside of the government to figure out why it's grown 8 times the rate of the normal budget. Same thing for home care services. And these are the 2 line items that are getting huge attention in Minnesota for corruption. Now, I can't point at corruption because I don't have access to the data, but I can sure point out is why the heck is that thing growing so much faster where we're losing people, we're losing companies, and yet we're spending that kind of money. So, and I would say it this way, childcare services. Of course, I care about children. Of course, I want them to be protected. But at the same time, if it's up 300%, is Governor Pritzker putting that many more kids into poverty? Or is there something else going on? And that question should be answered. And Governor Pritzker should come out and say, hey, no, I've done an audit of all these numbers. We're good. Or he should say, uh-oh, we got a problem. We better look at it. He hasn't come out and said anything, and the media hasn't held him to account for that as well. So.
And just to very quickly to kind of circle back on the previous question, you had said you answered that about the income tax rate that you would seek to go back to the previous rate, which was 3%. And even if it does spur economic growth, development, in the short term, there would still be billions of dollars of a deficit that would create that would have to be rectified by you and by the legislature. That can't be filled by just looking for waste, fraud, and abuse. What are some programs that you would seek to cut to get to that rate and be able to sustain it?
Yeah, so look, we're going to have to look at all the items. I think what we have to do is move away from these typical, we're going to cut 5% of the budget from each department. We can't go that way anymore. We need cultural shift. And so I think about this as look at the programs. Should government be doing them or not? If not, get rid of them. If government should be doing them more and doing them better, then promote that. I love what people say about what Mitch Daniels did. When he took over in Indiana, he went to the parking lot. He saw all those state cars. And he said, my gosh, do we have too many? So he put a penny on the tire of each car. And a week later, he went out and said, whichever one still had pennies on them, he sold them. We need to think differently about it. And I can think of many things that we're doing. Again, let's back up. We have the most units of government in the country. We have 7,000 taxing bodies. They don't coordinate with each other. And I can think of a city, a library, and a park district in a coterminous city. They don't cooperate. They all just raise taxes. They all get mandates. They all get subsidies. I just mentioned the school districts. We have 850 school districts. Can they be united? All the bureaucracies that are in those. Nobody talks about them. Nobody wants to even think about it and challenge it. That's the kind of stuff that I would do as governor to make sure that we find the savings, because we have a choice. Either we keep the spending where it is, and everybody knows nothing's being done about it. People will keep leaving, companies will keep leaving, or we start to address the waste and the big fat that we have. Warren Buffett famously said, "I will not invest in Illinois with all that debt they have, because they will come after me with taxes and taxes and taxes." He says, "I'm not coming in." And that's the risk we run.
To just, I guess, finish up on this part of the topic on the child care front, the child care spending has been a big priority in Governor Pritzker's second term. It was one of the first things he did in his second term budget was to increase spending on child care. His goal has been to, provide more universal options throughout the state and close a lot of child care deserts. Is that, I guess, what's your opinion of that goal, I guess? Would you do the same thing as governor, or would you kind of shift how you approach closing child care deserts?
It's fascinating. Governor Pritzker wears like a badge his increase in Medicaid people, the Medicaid enrollment. He wears it as a badge that more people are on food stamps. It looks like he wears it as a badge more people are on child care services. For me, he's got it all upside down. If you look at the data, since he's been governor, the last 7 years, we are the fourth worst in economic growth. We're the fifth worst in job creation. If you want to solve the problem of food stamps, of Medicaid, of child care services, what do? You grow the economy like crazy. That's what you do. You get people out of welfare, out of dependency. And he doesn't do that. And I think the media should absolutely focus on how bad we are in economic growth, at the bottom of the barrel. And I think that's the big thing, the big difference between me and him. I want to get to growth. I want people off of food stamps. I want people off of Medicaid. I want people off of child care services, because we're doing so well. And there's not that kind of thinking right now in Illinois. Our kind of thinking is like, let's just keep creating more dependency. Let's hand out more money. Let's increase spending at the expense of economic growth, because that's the only way you can explain it. Why are we so bad in job creation? Why are we so bad in economic growth? Why are we so bad in wage growth? Is because we don't think that way. Pritzker thinks in handouts, not economic growth.
Sanctuary states is obviously one of the big issues in this election cycle. You've said the state needs to end its sanctuary policies and allow local law enforcement to work on federal immigration enforcement. Do you have any concerns, I guess, that this would make people who are in the country illegally afraid to call 911 for help, or make them more afraid to maybe come forward as a witness to a crime?
I great question, but I'll tell you this. My concerns are totally different. We've forgotten how to bring crime down in Illinois. And yes, we can all celebrate that crime is down right now, because it's down dramatically across the country, and the people are trying to explain it. This past year, 2014, yes, we had murders go from 800 a few years ago to 400. Right now, that's a huge drop. Guess what? We were still the #1 city for total murders for the 14th year in a row. We've got the horrific Safety Act that we passed. We've got all kinds of problems. We have prosecutors who don't prosecute. We got judges who don't sentence. We have this revolving door of people getting arrested and being right back on the streets the next day. I don't think we should be talking about, I respect your question, but we're so far from safety and security in Illinois. You've had the likes of Kim Foxx and others here, Judge Tim Evans in Chicago, the Safety Act passed by Pritzker in the legislature that most public safety people didn't want. We have chaos right now, and so we have to flip the whole thing. We have to care about bringing police morale back up, letting them chase bad guys, letting them car chase bad guys, letting them have the tools and the backing so that they can do their job and keep Illinois safe. We have a long way to go. So I think we really need to get back to securing and protecting the victims, not the criminals, which is what I think the focus has been on for people like Brenden Johnson, like Kim Foxx, like Governor Pritzker.
I guess,
and I'm not sure if I answered your question, so I'm sorry.
Yeah, I guess wondering, do you feel like if the state ended sanctuary policies, local law enforcement was working with federal immigration agents, would people who are immigrants be more afraid to call 911 for help, more afraid to report crimes?
I don't know. When I think about who are 95% of the victims in Illinois for all these crimes I've talked about? Blacks and Latinos. I mean, if you look at the murders is blacks and Latinos who are the victims. So I'd rather protect the victims right now. That you have some trade-offs in any kind of policy you do. But no, I think the sanctuary state and sanctuary city is making a massive mess of Illinois. It's attracted criminals here because they know that they are protected. They know that the local authorities will not hand them over to federal authorities. So we're attracting criminals here. That's the big deal. No, that's why I made a commercial with Joe Abraham during one of the Bears games. Joe Abraham lost one of his daughter to an illegal criminal. Nobody cared what happened to him, and I want to make sure that his voice was heard, and that's why. But you have the crimes, we see them all the time. CWB Chicago does a great job of exposing all these crimes by illegal immigrants. We kind of ignore those. The press ignores them as if they don't happen. And we have to remember those victims as well.
I guess if the state were to end sanctuary policies and more local law enforcement was partnering with federal immigration agents, a lot of municipalities in the state do have a shortage of police officers. Does it make sense, I guess, from that point to say that local law enforcement should be working with the federal government on this, or should, I guess, they remain separate, maybe just for the sake of manpower?
Well, it's interesting. If we don't go after illegal criminals, who's going to go after them? I mean, that's my question. And what happens in all the other states that aren't sanctuaries? They function, right? We have the majority of states that don't have sanctuary states and sanctuary cities. I still have no valid reason to protect illegal immigrant criminals. There's zero reason to protect them. We should hand them over. And this is a big thing for me. I wish we would just, from local enforcement, think about the Cook County jails and Chicago, just hand over the bad guy directly from the local jail to the federal authorities. We wouldn't be chasing them on the streets and creating all the havoc. I, as governor, would work with the federal authorities and just hand over these bad guys. That's what we should be doing. We should protect the people of Chicago. We should protect the people of Illinois and just hand them over. Pritzker can't explain what he's doing. He can't explain the chaos that he does and the name calling that he does to foment more violence.
Turning to another topic, you want to get rid of the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity, which is the state's in-house economic development arm. Why?
Well, that's a good example. I don't believe that a governor should have the power to take a bunch of tax money from a whole bunch of people, a bunch of small entrepreneurs, small companies, and then turn it around and hand it to Goshen, right? So you've got this Chinese communist-owned EV battery maker that comes to Pritzker and says, "Hey, I want to be in Illinois." We weren't winning deals in Illinois. So what does Pritzker do to win a deal? He takes $500 million of tax dollars from the people. And he says, "Hey, I'll give you Goshen, here are $500 million in subsidies." It's wrong. It's wrong. I don't think a governor can pick the winners and losers in an economy. I don't think that, Rivian, as much as I love Rivian cars, is that the government's job to try to figure out how to make it a winner and save it? It shouldn't be. And so I'm a big believer in letting the markets figure out what are the best companies. Don't corrupt the business and the free markets with politicians trying to figure out and hand out and dole out money that belongs to taxpayers.
And I guess just for those watching and listening, you're referring to incentives that the state offers to companies like Goshen and Rivian, often in the form of payroll tax credits.
All kinds of different credits. Mm-hmm.
In Goshen, in this case, received $125 million from a deal closing fund that the legislature gave to Governor Pritzker to help close some of these deals for bigger employers that may be looking to come to the state. Just to follow up.
Branden, can I just make a comment there? So right. So the problem is we're having to pay companies to come here. And I know this is done in other states, they're all competing. But for me, the bigger driver is get the taxes down, get the regulations down, get rid of all the corruption, get rid of all that stuff and make it so that companies want to be here. I mean, I still find it fascinating that we're the sixth largest state. We have the amazing Chicago, and a Caterpillar headquarters would actually leave, and that a Boeing headquarters would actually leave, and in a Tyson Foods, I went through the list earlier, to scare away Citadel, one of the wealthiest men in Illinois, in the country, and all that staff that he had, super wealthy people, that tax base, to scare them away. It has to be really bad here. And so therefore, don't think that you're going to buy your way to giving out money to companies to come here. The best way to do that is lower taxes, get rid of regulations, get rid of the corruption, and make companies trust that they will be able to prosper here, because we're a growth-focused state, not a handout-focused state.
Right. Well, and you partially answered what my question was going to be, but states of all kinds, low tax, high tax, I guess everything in the middle, a lot of them have these incentive packages. They have these I guess this in place, the infrastructure in place. Do you worry that ending those could put Illinois at a disadvantage when competing for major economic development projects, when it may come down to something from the closing fund to get across the finish line?
And sorry, I laugh, but we're losing all the deals anyway, right? The only one we can get is when we get something like Goshen, which nobody wanted, by the way. So that's the only deal that Pritzker could win. No, I'm more concerned, and yes, I hear you, but we are getting our butts kicked anyway, right? That's our big problem. We wouldn't be where we are today. He's got the fund. It doesn't work. What really works is turning around the economy and focusing on that, and get rid of all this spending and all these taxes. We got the whole formula is upside down. I would argue that we're going to win a lot more, and especially think about it. The driver of states and cities are small businesses. They're the drivers, and they're the ones that are getting whacked by all these rules and taxes and all that. Think about the economic growth. We could lose a big company. Let's work on all those mom and pops and small businesses who are just trying to get by, and they're just getting slammed by all the regulations and taxes. Let's flip it, and let's get growth that way. And then big companies will want to be here because we are the sixth largest state. They should want to be here because we're good, because we're growing, we're exciting, and we're not that today.
Wirepoints researcher and current Republican candidate for governor, Ted Dabrowski. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, and all the best.
That was Ted Dabrowski, a Republican candidate for governor. And this has been a special edition of Capital Cast, Election 26. Capital Cast is a production of Capital News Illinois, a public affairs reporting project of the Illinois Press Foundation, with funding from the Robert R. McCormick Foundation. Continue following us for more podcast interviews and coverage of the 2026 elections. Until next time, on behalf of the entire Capital News Illinois team, thank you for listening.